Police are at a Texas home following reports of a brutal shooting that occurred just moments ago. When they arrive, they find the victim bleeding profusely from her head. But as they talk to her and attempt to assess the damage, they quickly realize her priority is on something far more horrifying than her own injuries. The shooter is her grandson, and while the officer's focus is elsewhere, he's been making his way swiftly across the town towards the local elementary, where he intends on unleashing an act of pure evil inside its walls. As the officers try their best to save the old lady, others flood to the school, praying with all they can muster that they'll arrive in time to prevent the tragedy that's about to come.
Might be. Kids coming out, kids coming out, kids coming out.
Only they're already too late. For the next 77 minutes, Uvalde Police Department will attempt to bring this horrific reign of terror to an end, knowing that every second they delay might mean another child needlessly sacrificed. A deadlock ensues, with the shooter locked and cornered inside a classroom while parents and family members wait helplessly outside. And as time stretches on without decisive action, a stark realization begins to dawn upon the crowd. The killer remains at large, but the police have no intention of stopping him.
How many shots have gone off since he was cornered in?
Can you hear us, sir?
Chloe Torres, please hurry. There's a lot of dead bodies.
Carolina, please, you did your classroom 112?
Yes, ma'am. Please seek help.
The small, tight-knit town of Uvalde, Texas, makes the perfect home for a set of residents who value the peace and quiet of suburban life. But on the 24th of May, 2022, that peace is about to be brought to an abrupt end.
701, speedy units have reported a woman shot in the head laying on Diaz Street. The one female shot in the head.
This is 66-year-old Celia Gonzalez. Just moments ago, she was shot in the face at point-blank range by her 18-year-old grandson, Salvador Ramos. And now, as the blood pours out of her in the backyard, she faces a desperate fight to stay alive. Celia is taken to an emergency vehicle where she will receive vital aid. Meanwhile, the attentions of the fellow officers turn to the perpetrator, who by now has fled the scene in his grandmother's pickup truck and remains armed, dangerous, and most definitely at large. In a situation like this, they know every second they delay offers the shooter another opportunity to put distance between himself and the crime scene. So, as they wrap round the front of the house, their focus is on regrouping and channeling everything they have towards tracking him down before he gets too far away. But to the horror of all the officers on scene, a call is about to come in that will elevate this potential threat to one of active and malicious intent, sending the officers scrambling to a scene so disturbing it'll stay with them for the rest of their lives. The question lingers on the air for what seems like an eternity. Then, finally, it receives an answer. Just 2 streets from where the shooting took place, the silence of the surrounding neighborhood is suddenly shattered. A pair of local workers head over to help the driver of the vehicle, calling 911 in the process. Little do they know they're headed straight towards a killer.
Uvalde County 911.
Yes, ma'am. Somebody just had an accident up here. I know you're just...
Are they still on the roadway?
Oh, my God! Oh, my God! Somebody shooting a gun! They're shooting guns! They're shooting guns! Oh my God, they just got shot at us.
They shot at you?
Yes. There's a guy about the school over here by Vincent. He's in the back. He's got a machine. He's shooting at the school. Hurry, please. He's in the pit. He's up in the schoolyard, ma'am. He's running toward the school.
Not that way. You said he's wearing black?
No, yes, he's walking. He's walking across to the Robb here right from the funeral home, and he's running.
Officers that are heading out that way. What is
Please, there's kids out there. There's kids out there, please. My Father, please, in the name of Jesus.
As for Ramos, he continues on a beeline for his real target, intent on carrying out a plan of such incomprehensible evil it's scarcely believable. Most shocking of all is his apparent air of calmness as he proceeds. He doesn't rush, but saunters as if he has all the time in the world. After all, he's been waiting for this moment for a very long time. A week prior to the attack on his grandmother, Salvador Ramos was celebrating what should have been a special day. He was shy as a child, bullied relentlessly for a speech impediment which stopped him from ever truly fitting in. What's more, his academic performance worsened over the years, with his patchy attendance rate eventually giving way altogether as he left school without any qualifications to his name. The signs of what was to come were there from early on. Ramos reportedly enjoyed abusing animals as a teenager, suspending cats in the air before bringing them crashing to the ground and boasting to peers about his actions. And it didn't take long for his abuse to escalate to more sizable targets. He began to fantasize about exacting revenge upon the schoolmates who had tormented him, of punishing them the way they punished him for being different. Eventually, this led him to pick out a gift for himself, something that would give him the payback he so desperately desired and strike fear into those who had mocked him. But in truth, his plan runs much deeper than that. Over the past year, Ramos had purchased a series of accessories that will allow him to carry out his revenge. Rifle slings, snap-on trigger systems, a military-grade carrier vest. His shopping list paints a desolate picture. Around this time, he posts a cryptic message to Instagram captioned 10 more days. Everything seems set up for a decisive break in the dark life of Salvador Ramos. And on the day of his 18th birthday, the gift he's been preparing for himself has finally arrived. On the 20th of May, 2022, Ramos makes his way to a local Oasis Outback store, where his firearms have recently arrived. Waiting for him is a DDM-4 V7 assault rifle, equipped with holographic sights that the store worker fits for him. 3 days earlier, he picked up another firearm from the store, a semi-automatic Smith & Wesson M&P 15. The destructive capability he now has in his hands is significant, to say the least. And later that afternoon, after stashing the guns outside his grandma's home on Diaz Street, he takes to social media to express his satisfaction. Ramos posts photos of his guns, tagging a girl by the username @epnupuez, a seemingly innocent bystander at the time who Ramos will soon implicate in his brutal machinations. Soon after he makes his post, he sends her a simple message. A few days pass without response, but Ramos is intent on getting an answer. Much to his frustration, the messages continue to lead nowhere. So, on May 24th, he follows up with a final attempt. And today, something feels different. It will soon transpire that Salvador Ramos is a fragile mind on the brink of atrocity, and it's only a matter of time before he snaps. You see, this girl isn't the only one being let in on his plot. Around the same time, Ramos sends a message to another girl, Cici, a 15-year-old from Germany whom Ramos speaks to often. By all accounts, this conversation gave some deeply troubling insight into his mind, painting the picture of a man teetering on the edge, waiting for a final push. He tells Cici of an ongoing disagreement he's been having with his grandma. She won't allow him to keep his guns in her house, a concession he's reluctantly had to agree to. But to make matters worse, she's now threatening to cancel his phone bill too. And this is unacceptable. Of course, Celia Gonzalez has no idea that the guns she's banned from her home have been stashed only meters away outside. To add to that, she remains completely in the dark as to the gruesome plan her grandson has been hatching for the best part of 6 months. But worst of all, she has no idea that their argument is on the verge of triggering a set of events so unthinkable that the gunshot wound she's about to suffer will pale in comparison. As Salvador Ramos makes his way calmly towards Robb Elementary, news of his unwelcome presence on campus spreads like wildfire. One teacher within Robb Elementary, named Amy Franco, left the building a few minutes ago, just in time to witness Ramos firing at the funeral home workers from by his truck in the ditch.
I think he's on campus. Please hurry.
As soon as she hears the gunshots, she immediately runs back inside, hammering on the doors of nearby classrooms to warn them of what she's seen. Across the campus, another teacher witnesses Ramos throwing his backpack over the school fence, calling the school office, who immediately impose a lockdown. The rapid response of teachers and local residents should be enough to keep the building secure and prevent Ramos from getting inside. Unfortunately, that won't be the case. The door through which Amy Franco re-entered just moments ago was clearly closed behind her as she proceeded, but moments later, as Ramos nears the entrance and attempts to gain access to the school, the door swings slowly open. He's now inside the building, and there is nothing to prevent what he's about to do. Ramos's reign of terror continues uninterrupted for over 2 minutes. He has breached classrooms 111 and 112, killing indiscriminately within the very same walls where he was bullied all those years ago. And as the surviving students hide themselves in any corner that will keep them out of sight, the killer sits at the center of his bloodbath, barricaded and waiting for officers to arrive. He doesn't have to wait long. The first officers arrive on scene shortly after reports reach dispatch. Their approach is led by Chief of Police Pete Arredondo, who moves his officers through the west wing where the shooter entered, getting them in position down the corridor. At this point in time, they have no idea about the extent of what he's done, nor do they know for certain exactly which room Ramos is inside. But they have narrowed down his position, and now they surround the 2 rooms, believing they're covering every possible exit the shooter can take. However, inside the room, Ramos is using this lull to reload his weapons, and he's about to remind the deputies exactly how serious a threat he poses.
Am I bleeding? Am I bleeding? No, he's sitting in the classroom. I down here. Yeah. He's in the class.
He fires through the doorway, striking Sergeant Eduardo Canales in the ear and sending the others scattering to the end of the corridor. They're okay, but they've been warned, and as they regroup, Chief Arredondo decides that breaching the room through the doorway will be far harder than first imagined. In the meantime, officers are now flooding to the scene from every angle, stationing themselves all around the West Wing where the shooter remains. A number of different squads, departments, and teams arrive, so many so that communication between them begins to become difficult. It isn't clear who should answer to whom, a problem which quickly becomes apparent as no one assumes leadership. And back inside, things aren't much clearer either. The main problem for Arredondo and his officers remains the fact that they have no idea what awaits them behind the shooter's door. And what's even worse is that they remain completely in the dark as to whether any students even remain alive inside the classroom. If, tragically, Ramos has left no survivors, the concern must turn immediately to the students still at risk in the other classrooms. But of course, there's a more disturbing possibility. If there are indeed children still alive inside the classroom, every second the officers delay is another second the children spend in the presence of a killer. And just as Arredondo weighs up what he knows, a broken call comes in that's about to turn everything on its head. The call has come from one of the children inside the school, although it disconnects before officers can find out which classroom the child is in. Despite the terrified whispering, however, and the fact that the child might be in close proximity to the shooter, no mention of the call reaches the officers on the ground, meaning Chief Arredondo remains in the dark as he faces his most crucial decision yet. His first option is to continue to treat the shooter as an active threat, calling in support units to breach the room and attempt to save anyone who might be left inside. The risks of this approach are significant, danger to officers and potentially to children in neighboring classrooms, but it remains the only hope of saving any survivors still within. However, concerned first and foremost with preventing any greater risk to life, Arredondo chooses an entirely different strategy altogether. He decides to reclassify the shooter as a cornered subject, contained within the classrooms where the damage he can do is limited. Although the partial knowledge available to him might offer some rationale as to his decision, this choice will turn out to be more consequential than he could ever have imagined. In any case, evacuations are now the priority, and with time ticking onwards, officers begin to make their way around the building to help children escape through the windows.
What happened? Kids coming out, kids coming out, kids coming out.
One by one, officers work their way through the classrooms, clearing out students as they proceed. The evacuations are a timely process, and by now, Ramos has been inside the school for well over 30 minutes. This fact is not lost on the parents outside the school grounds, who have begun to flock to the street outside the west entrance. An air of desperation has been quietly simmering among these parents ever since news of the shooting broke out, and now, confused, blind, and helpless, their frustration begins to turn to something deeper. All around the periphery of Robb Elementary, a sense of anger spreads from parent to parent. They can't see inside, nor can they hear any attempt to move forward. And with every minute of police inaction that passes, their frustrations grow. But inside the school, the frantic action that is being taken doesn't seem to be getting anywhere anyway, because Chief Arredondo has discovered a major obstacle standing in his way.
We cleared off the rest of the building so we wouldn't have any more besides what's in there, obviously. We're having a problem getting in the room because it's locked. You can get a sniper on that rooftop. They're going to try to breach in a minute, but they got to get the fuck.
For over 30 minutes, officers have been hunting for a key to room 111, which they believe has been locked from the inside. The plan is to station a sniper on the south side of the West Wing, where he'll have a clear view into the room in which Salvador Ramos still remains. Once again, this is a plan that has taken considerable time and diverted attention away from what they should be focusing upon. And what's more, the hunt for a key will turn out to be entirely unnecessary. The door is open and has been ever since Ramos entered nearly 3/4 of an hour ago. To add to that, the confusion as to whether the shooter is in room 111 or 112 turns out to be a false dilemma. An interleading door between each classroom has given him freedom to move from one to the other, switching position as he pleases and wreaking havoc in a larger area than first feared. The frustrations of the parents outside have been entirely vindicated. Arredondo and his team have been wasting time they simply don't have, all to pursue a futile objective that could have been avoided with a simple check. And soon enough, around an hour after the shooting began, a call comes in that raises the stakes even further.
Uvalde County 911.
There's a school building.
Yes, I'm aware. I was talking to you earlier. You're still there in your room? You're still in room 112?
No.
Okay, you stay on the line and do not disconnect, okay?
Okay.
The caller is the same little girl as earlier, who's hiding in room 112, just meters away from the killer. The damning reality for Arredondo and his team is now unavoidable. For over an hour, young girls and boys have been abandoned in a room alongside a monster, listening through the walls as the officers hesitate, reassess, and ultimately leave them to the killer's mercy. Back outside the school, tensions are at a fever pitch as angry parents threaten that if action isn't taken, they will go in themselves. Many of the individuals attempting to push their way through the police blockade are detained and physically prevented from entering. But such is the extent of the delays at this point that even the officers begin to question what's going on.
How many shots have gone off since he was cornered in? And nobody went in. No, Pete did. And then? Where's Pete?
It has now been over an hour since shots were first reported, and the discovery of survivors still inside the rooms with the shooter has laid Arredondo's mistake bare for all to see. Finally, at 12:47, a key is discovered, and the entry team stacks on the door to room 111, preparing to engage. Before ordering the room to be breached, Chief Arredondo attempts to talk to Ramos from outside the door.
Mr. Ramos, can you hear me?
We need more rifle shields.
Mr. Ramos, can you hear me? Please put your gun down, sir. Please don't hurt anyone else.
As he receives no answer, he finally finds himself with no other choice. After an eternity of waiting, he tells his men to push inside. At first, they're struck by the room's stillness. Bodies are strewn across the room, blood is smeared upon the walls, but over it all, not a sound can be heard. Ramos has gone. Officers begin to change their focus. If he's not in the room, he must have escaped through the window. But then...
Is there an officer there?
No, he's inside.
Who's inside?
The shooter.
For 10 seconds, Robb Elementary is alight in a violent frenzy, and then the silence falls once more. Outside the room, officers release their breath. Inside lies Salvador Ramos, motionless on the floor. After 77 minutes of inaction, it takes just 3 to end the massacre. In the aftermath of the shooting, the inquest begins almost immediately. Investigators identify a series of profound failures, but 3 stand above the rest. First, the decision to classify the situation as a barricaded subject rather than an active shooter. Even as children trapped inside the classroom called 911 for help, officers waited, believing time was on their side. Second, the utter collapse of any leadership.
We're having a problem getting in room because it's locked.
With more than 370 officers from multiple agencies on scene, not a single commander assumed charge. Confusion took the place of action, and paralysis replaced urgency. But third, and most damning of all, officers prioritized their own safety over the lives of children only meters away. For 77 minutes, children lay bleeding inside rooms 111 and 112, waiting for a rescue that never came. Outside, parents begged officers to go in. Some were pinned to the ground. They believed the people with rifles and armor would save their children. Instead, they were forced to watch on as the officers stood still. Although some were made to pay for their actions that day, Salvador Ramos was shot dead, and Chief Arredondo indicted on 10 counts of child endangerment, there remains one detail that no one can forget. In the one moment when action mattered most, the only sound those children heard was silence.